everyone, to your Thursday evening dose of astronomy. I was having a little bit of a glitch there getting my streaming going, but off we are. So I'm Irene Pease. I'm with the Amateur Astronomers Association of New York. And tonight we're going to be using same software that I like to use, OpenSpace, which you can find and download for free at openspaceproject.com. And also Stellarium, which you can download and put on your apps, your devices and whatnot at stellarium.org or whatever app store you use for your devices. So tonight is People in Space Night. So I want to talk about people in space because people on the Earth, not doing so great right now. So yeah, we're starting off. We have our visualization from OpenSpace here. So again, OpenSpace, we use the Digital Universe Atlas, which is mostly curated at the American Museum of Natural History here in New York City. And so we're using real data sets. We're not going to go too terribly far because, again, we're talking about people in space tonight, and people haven't been too terribly far out into the universe. So we're going to stay pretty local, but that's okay. But all the stars and stuff you see in the background, the image of the Earth, that's all from real data. So pretty good stuff. I want to start off, though, as usual, with some Stellarium. So I'll switch over to that and take a look at what's happening in the sky right now. So as usual, yep, this is now. Just checking. And this is going to be fairly localized in the stuff I want to show you here tonight. You see the moon's up. Great. I check over on that tree, and I think in a little bit Mercury will be behind that tree. If you haven't seen Mercury, I don't know if you're going to get much of a chance at this point. Setting sun, yeah, there's Mercury. It's behind the tree. So if you don't have a tree there, you're golden. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward to about 9 o'clock. It's starting to get a little bit darker, but it's not too dark yet. So go ahead and pause time, and we look over. So yes, there's the moon. That's not your challenge for tonight. Well, if you don't live in New York City, then that might be your challenge for tonight. But yeah, the furthest that people have been out in space is to the moon, which is out tonight. And just for fun, I'm going to do this fun thing. Stellarium gives you these options to modify your solar system. So we're going to scale the moon up so that it's 4 times the size that would appear in our sky, because then you can actually see, oh, look, it's almost full. Actually, it is. It's right. I think I mentioned that last week, that it was going to be a 14-day-old moon. So that's about as full as it gets, 99.3. I'm going to call that full. We'll just pretend it's 100. It's close enough for government work. So the moon, that's where we went. We being humans, the U.S. sent a bunch of astronauts there. 12 people walked on the moon about 50 years ago. So that's as far as we've gone. They landed here, and that was 11, and then they landed over here in this more bumpy stuff, and that was 12, and then 13 didn't land, and then 14 landed like about 5 feet away from 12, so like over here, and then 15, that was the really awesome one. Why? Because being Americans, they bought a car. Because, you know, hauling stuff around on the moon, it's easier than hauling stuff around on Earth because there's less gravity, but you're still hauling stuff around, and so, like, you know, let's bring a car. So they went driving on the moon in 15, which was awesome. And then 16, they were back in some other bumpy stuff over here-ish. And then 17, they were like between the smooth stuff and this little bit of bumpy stuff here. And then we haven't been back since. So I do promise that one of these days we'll visit some of those sites, probably 11 and or 15, because those are kind of my favorites. But for today, yeah, just go out, look at the moon if you get a chance, if you can go outside safely. It's bright. This is actually the worst time to look at the moon in a telescope, because at this time there's no contrast. So I don't know if I've mentioned in past episodes, when the moon is fully lit, right, there's no shadows. If I just fast forward or go back one day, maybe I'll go back 2 days just so I can show this a little better. So you go back in time like you do, and we'll make it a little bit darker. So we come back to when the moon was kind of between Virgo and Libra, the pound scale thing, and look back in here. So I don't like looking at the moon through my telescope when it's full because you don't have this day-night line. So the day-night line, we call that the terminator. It's like the edge of the day, the end of the day. That's where you have shadows, and so you get better contrast, and you can really see the depth and height of some of those craters and mountains, the really amazing, beautiful features that the moon has. So we like having that terminator because the difference in shadows shows us the difference in altitude of the terrain. So that's really important. It was important for the people landing on the moon actually to have that contrast. And then it's just nicer to be able to see it as opposed to it being like completely like floodlit with no contrast. So like I wouldn't want to look over here with my telescope, but if I were looking out at the moon on this night, I would look along the edge there. That's the really cool part to see where you get more detail. So hang on to that. We'll come back to that in a little while. But back to 9 o'clock tonight. The other thing, the main thing I want to talk more about is the people that are in space now. So probably a lot of you hopefully got to watch the shuttle, or not the shuttle, the rocket launch. It wasn't a shuttle. We haven't launched a shuttle in like 8 years, but this was the first time that we were launching people into space from American soil since the shuttles were retired, and it was the first time that a private company did that. So SpaceX successfully launched the Falcon up into space. It went up, it came back down, landed on its little X marks the spot pad, and the Crew Dragon continued on to the International Space Station, which will be visible in the sky tonight. It was actually visible in the sky that Saturday night over New York City. It is kind of localized, which is why I'm mentioning that I am broadcasting from Brooklyn. But later tonight around, is it 9? I still have this fast forwarded an hour. Oops. Yeah, so around 9:05, there will be a bright spot that appears from behind that tree. Not that you have that tree on your horizon, but a bright spot will appear in the kind of west-northwest, and it'll slowly traverse across the sky over the course of about 5 to 6 minutes. I think the pass from Brooklyn is supposed to be from 9:05 to 9:10, 9:11-ish this evening. And it's going to kind of skim over this constellation. This is Hydra. It's kind of a snaky constellation. It's not a dragon. I'm going to come back to dragons. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's neat to be able to look up and think, oh wow, there's people in space. And people have actually been living continuously in space for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years this November. So the space station is a little bit older than that. The name, if I click on it in Stellarium, it comes up as ISS and Zarya. So Zarya is the original piece that the Russians put up there in 1998, but it wasn't until 2000 that we had people continuously living on there, and ever since. So pretty great stuff. So tonight from Brooklyn, the highest altitude is going to be about 30 degrees, so it'll be up to 30 degrees off kind of the southwest horizon. It'll be as high as it gets in the sky. So about a third of the way up between the horizon and straight overhead, the point we like to call the zenith. So I'm going to fast forward this just a smidge. You'll see there's another satellite moving along up there. So the International Space Station, with all of its reflective light gathering capacity, all those solar arrays, I believe it is the brightest artificial satellite that you can see in the sky. So you can definitely see it even from bright cities. I've seen it from Grand Army Plaza, Brooklyn, which is, pretty bright, like the library and all the bright lights are right there. And the reason that we see it usually around dawn or around dusk is because the rest of the sky is darker, so you have that contrast. So remember what I said about 3 minutes ago about seeing the different altitudes on the moon when it's like along the day-night line? So imagine if we had a mountain that was 400 kilometers high, right? So basically, this is 400 kilometers above the Earth. You know, we're down on the ground. So if you had like a 400-kilometer mountain, the sun would have set at the base of the mountain, but it hasn't set. It's still lighting up this top of the mountain, so to speak, 400 kilometers up. So we can see it because the sun is still shining on it, but it's dark here, so we see a dark sky. So that's why we're seeing it around sunset, usually for a few hours after sunset and or a few hours before sunrise, when we are kind of near our terminator. So you won't see it during the day. It's not bright enough to show up really during the day, unless you're, it's eclipsing the sun or transiting the sun, I should say. It won't block out the whole sun. And you won't really see it at night, like late at night, in the middle of the night. Depending on the time of year, you can still see it kind of late. But you can see it's making this long pass, and it's pretty awesome. So it should be a good pass if you can go outside safely. That's your challenge for tonight if you are near New York City. If you're not near New York City, then you'll need to look up where it's going to be for your location, when and where. So there's apps and programs. You can go to websites like heavensabove.com, that's heavens-above.com, or apps like ISS Finder or other satellite tracking software. And they'll tell you what direction to look, what day to look, when to look, how high, how bright it's going to get, all that good stuff. So that's the ISS tonight. And so I think I did want to show some really neat pictures of the ISS from, I'm just going to leave that running. I wanted to show some pictures that actually some people from AAA took of the ISS pass last week, last Saturday when it came up. Sure if I've got, yeah, close enough. Okay. I thought I was going to be smoother than that, but that's okay. So first image, actually want to go back up. Photo cred. So this was taken, I believe, in the Bronx. Photo credit for Chirag Upridi. You can find more of his photography on his website, chiragupridi.com. And so here you can see this streak is the International Space Station. And then there's a much lighter streak here. So I actually want to zoom in on that a little bit. Zoom, and up a bit. So there's this really light streak. And if we want, we can trace it all the way back because you got this great exposure. So when I started looking at the maps of like, oh, the ISS is going to go overhead, and then Dragon, the Crew Dragon should be behind it, or some people said in front of it, and I'll get to that. So there's some debate as to whether or not this thing is Crew Dragon, but I'm going to go with Team Crew Dragon as opposed to something else that may have been trailing the ISS. So these 4 stars actually make up the head of the constellation Draco the Dragon. So what I really wanted was a shot of the Crew Dragon going through Dragon. So thank you, Chirag, for getting that shot for us. That's beautiful. There's another great shot. This is taken by Stan Honda in a little bit further south in Central Park. So you can kind of see the reservoir there. If I zoom in a little bit and scan down. So just kind of looking east. So again, this was in the northeast. And up top here, again, this bright streak. This was a shorter exposure. So you have this streak here. That's the International Space Station. And then over here, and we'll zoom in because it's so great, over here, trailing behind it, says my camp, Crew Dragon. So much fainter because it's much, much smaller. And then because of the wide field, we have like these 4 stars again. That's Draco. So there's Crew Dragon, the dragon going through the dragon. So thanks also to Stan Honda for getting a beautiful picture of a dragon and a dragon. So if you're not familiar with the Amateur Astronomers Association, I just have to say we have an amazing astrophotography group. Stan Honda teaches some of the classes. Chirag is also one of our very active astrophotographers. So if you are interested in doing astrophotography, definitely check out the other stuff on our YouTube channel, and check out the club website, the association's website as well. So coming back, again, I kind of let the ISS pass through here. But I think it's time to get to some OpenSpace. So that was Stellarium, some cool images from fellow AAA members, and now on to onward and upward. Whew. All right. So usually when I have this on, I might turn off the ISS orbit, so it's that kind of orange line going around the Earth. And again, just for reference, okay, we've toured. We've gone through the solar system. We've gone on tours outside the solar system, around the galaxy, outside the galaxy. But just a reminder, the farthest that people have actually been, looks like I actually turned it off, is out to here, right? So there's our moon's orbit. That's as far as we've gone in space, right? And yeah, that's it. It's like 1.5 light seconds away, as opposed to light minutes or light hours. I mean, we've sent our robots just barely outside of our solar system. But this is as far as people have been. So there's like little footprints over there. That's it. All right. So coming back in, let's check out the ISS. Because last week when I was watching these launches, I thought to myself, I really want to get to know my way around the ISS, because people were taking all these really cool pictures. If you go online, there's more pictures of people taking shots of the ISS through binoculars or through telescopes, and you can actually see some of the detail. And I like doing annotations for some celestial images and things. So I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if I could annotate the ISS images? So I need to learn my way around the ISS. So I'll do a live stream about it, and then I'll have to learn something about it. So I'm going to show you what I've learned. So if we focus on the space station, the model that's in here, I believe, is I'm going to say circa 2015, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But here we are, coming along. Whew. And I believe, yeah, this is more or less now, but here we have ISS. So this is, okay, imagine a football field, all right? So here, this basically covers a football field, all right? So it's less than a football field wide along like the business end, and then the long part of the football field, that's kind of like how far out all these solar arrays extend. So it basically, I mean, it's powering itself from sunlight. So it has these massive solar arrays, and those can change directions to collect sunlight. So they can change the angle so that they're directed more towards the sun as they pass around. So you saw kind of how quickly, or maybe when you think how slowly, the ISS passed through our night sky or our evening sky when we were looking at Stellarium. But because it's only 400 kilometers up, so that's like a little bit further away than DC is from New York. So if I were starting maybe out on Long Island somewhere and drove to DC, like that's 400 kilometers, all right? So that's how far up it is. But at that altitude, it circles the Earth. It travels all the way around the Earth every 92 minutes and change. So they're seeing a sunrise and sunset every hour and a half or so, which is pretty great. So International Space Station, there are parts from different countries, just like the name suggests. And we have kind of a Russian side and an American side, but there's other bits and pieces. And I'm just going to zoom in a bit. Whew. All right. So the other thing that I had to get straight was a port and starboard. So it's like a ship, right? So if you look in the direction that it's going, so we have bow and stern, right? So you're looking in the direction that you're headed. Starboard's on the right. So we have starboard arrays, port arrays. And then up towards I guess we'll call it the front or the bow, front side, the direction that it's headed. Over here we have this is the Esa Module Columbia. And so a lot of these modules, these are places where they're storing stuff, where there's experiments. But yes, this is ESA, and then this is the Japanese section. So they have the horizontal and then like a vertical module. So we'll kind of flip around and look at that. Zoom in a little bit more. So yeah, so these are Japanese, And we have Canada arm from Canada. So the Canada arm is amazing. The Japanese also have an arm. There's a smaller arm, servicing arm that sticks off of that. And this is the end where Dragon, the Crew Dragon, is docked at the moment. And so I think they're supposed to be there as late as August. So moving back from there, we have US piece. US piece. This piece is the Tranquility. Tranquility. So Destiny, Tranquility, and Tranquility would be probably your favorite spot on the ISS because it has this little thing here, which might look familiar if you've seen pictures or videos of astronauts at the ISS, like looking out a window. This is probably it. So this is the cupola where these little flaps all fold back, and so it's like you're in a fishbowl and you can look down because that's the Earth-facing side. So you can look down and just get a really cool view of the Earth. This piece, I think that's Leonardo, was moved from here to this forward-facing section. So that was moved by the Canada arm back in 2015. That's why I'm pretty sure this model is circa 2015-ish. So that's moved a little bit, but that's mostly storage. And then moving back along here, we have a couple of pieces that look identical. Ooh, what are those? So if I rotate around a little bit, we have the Unity module is kind of in the center of this mess, connecting all these bits. And then we have the Russian side and 1, 2, 3 Soyuz attached to that. So you can head out at any time if you need to. It's always good to have redundancy. So between the time that NASA retired the shuttles and last Saturday, the Soyuz was the only way to get to and from the space station. So really, really good to have that. But this is the Zarya. So that was what we saw as the label in Stellarium. That's the original piece that the Russians first started. They were the first ones to put that up there. And so it has like its own little kind of solar panels. So that's the original bit. And then the other main Russian module, I'm going to mess this up, but it's Zvezda. And so that's kind of like the command section. So that has all the computers and they can control it all from, I mean, just imagine like if you were on a ship and the only ships that I really know about are from Pirates of the Caribbean, but they're standing in the back kind of steering ahead. So imagine it like the Black Pearl. So all the command stuff, if they need it, is back here. So that's my little tour of the ISS, the International Space Station. So they do have all kinds of experiments that you can do. You can play around in space because there's not no gravity, there's microgravity. But that's where we have 5 people living in space right now. Whew. So that was most of what I wanted to show you guys. I was afraid I wasn't going to have time to get through all of the ISS stuff. But I just wanted to, again, kind of point out they are just how fast they're moving across here. So right now I think we're over ocean, but I'll go ahead and speed up time so we can see what it's like when we come in over. I don't know if I can get over land during the day. It's a little bit tricksy. We'll try to fast forward. So you can see just if you're looking down from the ISS, how fast it's actually booking it along there. So that's speeding up through time. Speeding up. Oh, so here we are over some land. So most of the world is ocean. It's 70% oceans, right? So a lot of times they're just out over the ocean. But here, yeah, this is real time. So if I'm not moving around it, there's no friction. We're not like cycling around it. This is just moving through time. This is how quickly they'd be moving over all the city lights and the dark side, and then interesting land masses on the day side. So if you feel like you want some space, I'll rotate around here, kind of look down. There's lots of really great images taken by astronauts. Chris Hadfield's one of my favorites. He has a nice book of images out there. He's the one who did the David Bowie cover in space, I think by the cupola. or maybe it was in one of the modules. But that's our little tour of people in space. So if you have questions or requests, is that Australia? Not sure where we are. It looks like we're over Italy. I think that's a boot. But yeah, people would get really good at like identifying like what land masses they were over. I just want to share that I don't know what I'm doing next week, but in 2 weeks we do have a special guest who's going to be on, and we will be looking at Jupiter. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. Be safe if you go outside to look for the International Space Station. Again, in Brooklyn, that's a little after 9 o'clock, which is past curfew, so be safe out there. If you're not in Brooklyn, then your challenge is to find an app that will tell you when it's going to be over you. So hope that you can come back next week for another Thursday night dose of astronomy. Again, I'm Irene Pease with the Amateur Astronomers Association, using OpenSpace, which is available at openspaceproject.com, and Stellarium, which is available at stellarium.org. So have a good week, and we'll hope to see you next week. Thanks.